Greetings, one and all. Our first item for today is changes at the service facilities related to Model 3 that I think are terrific. Wanted to review some of them that I just observed. The second thing we're covering today is Tesla has two versions of the truck. We have the big long distance truck that's 5 to 600 miles, and we have the short distance truck. And the interesting question is, why two trucks when Daimler and others are sticking with one version of this long truck? We're also going to cover some of the other sort of news of the week stuff that's occurred that I think is sort of important to review, especially because we're about to find out what the Model 3 ramp numbers are. And then finally, I specifically wanted to review the fact that the newest Tesla performance editions that we're seeing at our service facilities are coming in a hidden form. So I wanted to sort of discuss what I saw and what I think is going on with this. Bonjour, Monsieur Jacques. Thanks for taking time out. Once again, this is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. As usual, you guys can say hello. Look forward to any and all of your questions. But I will say that unfortunately, unfortunately, I wanted to note that, hey, I'm reading. I have to delay responses to questions so that we don't interrupt when we have future viewers viewing as well. And Jerry, thanks for the comment. You've been one of my most loyal folks in that regard. Final note to make is your like is really appreciated. It ranks our videos so it gets seen by more people. And by watching 5 seconds of the ads we place, it is really helpful because it helps provide resources to the channel with the a few seconds of your watch time that's allowed. And any suggestions you have about number or length of ads would be appreciated. I just posted some photos on our Tesla Fan Insight YouTube edition and would greatly appreciate you guys going over to take a look at the photos because that's where I'm starting today. As I shared with you guys, every Sunday I go to church near where the Tesla on Tyka Road in McLean, Virginia is located, or Tyson's Corner. And that location is one of probably 50 service centers in the United States. And as I've shared before, what we've started doing is posting photos every Sunday just so you guys can take a look at what's going on at the facility, new colors of cars, and other things that have popped up. This week's interesting pop-up was the fact that all of a sudden, Model 3s, there are 3 Model 3s that are coming with a white cover over them. It's a zip-on white cover, usually reserved for cars that they're trying to hide something about what's underneath there. I didn't take the time to rip the cover off and take a photo and put it back on so I could go to jail, but I just wanted to note to you that I think it's pretty obvious that we switched to the dual motor version, and there are other changes that are trying to keep under wraps for a brief period. But I would request you guys jump over and just take a look at the sort of hidden version. I also did like the covers because Tesla ships vehicles across the United States and usually only puts covering on the bumpers front and back, and the rest of the car is exposed to the elements. So if in fact this is a change specifically to the Model 3 that allows there to be a full cover for the entire trip cross country, I think that would be really good news for owners because it reduces the chance of any kind of damage from birds or hail or anything else that might show up on the roadways as the vehicles are moving across the country. But it was kind of fun to see an attempt to hide something that's going to be out in the open in a couple of days and kind of shouldn't be a big deal. I'm going to make it the thumbnail. I may do a dual thumbnail where we're getting in some truck stuff, so I may end up switching off to another thumbnail simply because it covers the broad range of what we're covering in the show. So I was fascinated because another thing that happened at the service facility is something that we've been talking about for a while, which is Tesla has a number of ways that they're really losing a lot of money on the service side of the house. And one of them that I was impressed to see, and I'll go ahead and post photos of this, is that Enterprise Car Rental now has a deal with at least our service facility. And so Enterprise is maintaining a group of cars, maybe 4 or 5 cars, that with reserved spots. So if you bring your Tesla in for repair, you immediately can get a rental car from Enterprise, as opposed to Tesla giving you a $150,000 vehicle as a loaner, which is really expensive. They now give you instead of them driving to you, you come to Tesla, drop off the vehicle, and then pick up your Enterprise rental car, and then do vice versa as your repair work has been done. I want to say this is terrific news. Bad news for customers, because you don't get a 100K, 200K car that you can drive around while yours is being repaired, and that they don't pick you up at your house. But it's really good news for the company, because there are a lot of hidden losses that the company has been enduring by making a move in this fashion. So I am thumbs up to Tesla on this move, because I think it'll really help their cost of goods side, or their repair side costs, by making this move. So congratulations to all of you that sort of listened or watched or anything. The next thing that this brings up is the whole conversation we're having about, if you're needing service repairs of any type, if you can get your vehicle in, please do so. It supports the company if you let them repair at the repair facility rather than at your home, because they can't charge you enough to pay for the time it takes a technician to drive to your house, fix, and leave. And hopefully, we get a change in operations that supports this change. And part of all of us supporting the success of what I consider our company is just finding little ways that we can, help support the success of the company. I definitely want to hit the truck stuff, but I don't know if you guys have read it, but there's some bad news going on right now about Tesla's solar panel issues. I've had a thing going where I've had at least spent time with 10 or 15 owners of Teslas in the last, let's say, month and a half, and I was fascinated by how consistent it was that there are many owners who own the vehicles but don't have a solar panel or a battery pack there to collect power to go into the vehicle. What it looks like to me is that when you think about the difference from an ICE engine to a Tesla, that's a big change, and there are a lot of people embracing that shift. One of the issues that's popped up, though, is there's a teeny-weeny other issue that's sort of emerged here, that is the fact that the solar panels don't provide as dramatic a shift. So once you put that solar panel or roof on, the orientation is only a certain direction. So I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but there's actually something called Sunflower, which is actually a solar panel that actually tracks the sun across the sky during the day, so you can optimize the amount of solar power that's being drawn in. And those are actually sitting on poles on your lawn rather than being attached to the roof. So one of the things that we're seeing about is that Tesla just closed 14 facilities related to Solar City or Tesla Energy. And the suggestion is hopefully they don't have to write off the whole thing, but it's a $5 billion acquisition when you look at the price tag and the debt that they took on from Solar City. And the company is actually shrinking in terms of its percentage of installations that are being done across the country. There's a trade-off there. If you're only consuming a couple of $100 a month worth of electricity, but you're going to spend 15, 20K on solar panels, there are a lot of people saying there's not enough value associated there to do that. I believe when we have a lot of people with electric vehicles in their driveways, and now their consumption of electricity is consistent with maybe 4 or 5 times that, if you're spending $1,000 a month or so in electricity for your vehicles, that might be a reason to go ahead and put a $10,000 or $15,000 installation on the roof, because you can try to recapture those numbers more quickly. And I just don't think that the numbers are compelling for a lot of folks right now, until there is a good reason why they're consuming enough electricity to get a more rapid process going, a more rapid payoff process in this regard. And by the way, there can be a tariff issue related to how the Chinese have handled this, but I'm not really into that totally, only because I believe that at least 30, if not 40% of the cost of those solar panels is the cost of installation. And the people side of that is definitely part of the game of where those costs are coming in. And you're right, no more government incentives would be part of it. The second part of the show I wanted to cover today is an interesting trivia question for all of you that are intense Tesla followers, which is, why is it that Elon Musk decided to provide two trucks, one at 500 miles, one at 300 miles, and they're both tractor trailers, and they're somewhat running with each other, particularly if it's not extremely long distance versions? And I have a very interesting answer for you, which we sort of deduced over time. If we rotate backwards and note, when Tesla started the whole process, they deliberately started the first mules with freight containers behind it. So they basically took a Cascadia truck, put a Tesla battery pack and motors in, and that Cascadia truck was towing 80,000 pounds all total, with the rear of it being the containers. The answer is that they're actually, I want to call it, there are multiple different truck markets in the world, but it turns out the number one market currently for electric trucks is actually drayage, which means all of those containers that come off the dock have to go either to a rail car, or they're going to storage facilities, maybe right next to or close to whatever port it's in, or it could be way inland. So in the Los Angeles area, we have some place called the Inland Empire. So the value of the real estate is so high close to the ocean that what's been happening is there's a large fleet of trucks that tow those containers that come in into the Inland Empire, if they're not going on freight trains for extremely long distances. And so once they go into the warehouses, Amazon can source from there. It's like an Amazon warehouse, for example, or a Walmart warehouse. So the problem that's popped up is that all the pollution that's generating is a complete nightmare. We've covered the fact that it's being experimented with BYD trucks that go 100 miles. The Port of Oakland is paying $250,000 a truck for a 100-mile range. So one of the interesting things about these port locations is that, guess what? They have a monopoly. So when you think of grocery store chains that are using electric trucks, they only have a 2% margin. So they're so tight on margin that they're hard pressed to pay up way above what they're currently paying for ICE trucks to move goods into their stores or distribution facilities. When it comes to port facilities, they can afford to pay more, and the main reason they can pay for more is they have a monopoly on their location. So the Port of Los Angeles in Long Beach is, I don't know if it's number one, but it's in the top 10 in the world for port cities. If you want freight to come to the west coast of California, it's pretty much Oakland or San Francisco. And when you look at the size of the population and the wealth of California, all those people that want to sell goods in that area are forced to use that. So a slight markup to cover the cost of electric vehicles versus ICE vehicles in that marketplace is a no-brainer, and therefore we can see now why they could pay $250,000 for a truck, where a large grocery chain would be like, no way we're spending that amount of money. The other thing that's nice about ports is that they have so many different lengths of trips. So the trip could be, let's do 50 trips of a truck. Once the boxes drop by the crane, it has to drive, let's say, to the railhead, and that's only a quarter, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile. Have that truck do that 50 times to use up its 100-mile range, if that's the range it has. So pretty much what I'm suggesting then is that Tesla has the shorter truck, with the number one truck market that people have been going after with those vehicles being the drayage business at seaports. And so I think it would be fascinating, and it's not going to happen, if Tesla was really serious about pollution and change that it could export around the world. What about building a fleet just for the Long Beach or Los Angeles port facility and sending hundreds of electric trucks into that space, measuring the reduction in pollution associated with that change. And therefore, all the other places that have these large port facilities moving all that freight will just use those measurements and how those costs are playing out to bring that solution to their places. Um, any rate, um, the bottom line is that the drayage market is fascinating because the distances isn't that long, but they really are emphasizing the impact of pollution reduction and other cost reduction related to the introduction of electric vehicles in the form of trucks. Um, you know, so we'd love to hear any and all of your comments related to why is Tesla doing 2 trucks when Daimler is doing uno or 1 truck, and how this is all playing out, because in theory they could have just done 2 of the same trucks and just kept it focused on one market. But in this case, they're really targeting those vehicles at different markets. And by the way, you don't need a lot of aerodynamics if you're going a quarter of a mile, point to point within a freight yard. And so hence you also notice that there isn't a lot of built-in aero features, maybe the flange on top of the truck, but other than that, the smaller truck really lacks a lot of the sort of long-term elements that go with the bigger truck. The final thing I want to do is maybe clean up some other things. We're keeping our fingers crossed that the numbers have crossed that 3,500 mark, heading for 5,000 by the end of this week. Jerry, thanks for your questions about what's going on with the Saboteur. Clearly, there's a disgruntled employee, and he shipped a lot of Tesla-sensitive information out somewhat to get even. I think it's an unfortunate situation for both sides. I hope they're able to work it out amicably. It's mind-blowing that you got to waste time on stuff like this, given the other initiatives that the company is focused on. So hopefully it's cleaned up pretty quickly. I'm actually looking forward to really diving into what's been accomplished, and I really do think that the tents that were put up, it suggests, based on the vehicles we're seeing right now, that the performance versions are now rolling. I think I may try and swing back to the facility if I can to get more photos of the hidden vehicles for you guys so that we can try to deduce what's happening. One thing that's obvious if you look in the photos is the rubber. There's a wider tire being used along with the aero features of the hubcaps that they've done. And so it's clear that we're into the performance versions now being delivered, and some strange reason they're choosing to cover them up. Who knows? It doesn't make sense to me because that cover's coming off and there'll be photos like crazy everywhere. But wait a second, this could have been my Instagram moment where I get a photo that nobody has that ends up being huge. So did I just blow my global Instagram boom photo or not? You guys tell me, take a look at the photos, see what you think. The only features that I could really deduce are a wider tire to go with, no change in colors or anything of that sort. Excellent question. The other thing I don't have anything on DIY aftermarket on sort of Tesla batteries, et cetera. An excellent question. I think it's definitely worth research to see if there's anything new out there. As usual, we're about 20 minutes in right now, and we have a show coming up in 2 days, and I'm actually going to make it our let's dive more into the semi show if we haven't gotten any new numbers, which I don't think we get until the end of the month. But I wanted to sort of cover a few things, see what you guys thought of what we're taking a look at. Jerry, thanks. Merci beaucoup to our friends in Montreal for saying, or Canada for saying hello. Thank you all for your likes again. Your likes and 5-8 seconds of watching some ads really help us. And we also have a Patreon attachment on there, as well as a way for you to save if you want to use, if you're buying and you want to use the code that's already on our page. Would love to hear any and all questions that you have and suggestions of topics that we should be considering covering. let's all keep our fingers crossed for that 5,000 numbers so we can really get the hedge funds killed and have Tesla gain a lot of stock and be able to do a lot more positive good in terms of the impact that switching us over to electric is having. Au revoir, Monsieur Jacques. Au revoir, Monsieur Jerry. Thanks for the visit and the comments. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Please remember to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss anything. Again, look forward to any and all comments that you guys might have in terms of upgrades that we can do to the channel, because the goal is to continue to enhance and improve. And indeed, I agree with you on the down with the hedge funds plan. Have a great rest of your weekend, and look forward to our next conversation in a couple of days when I get a chance to dive more heavily into trucks, favorite topic and a big impactor on our channel. Have a great day, and thanks for now.